In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a monstrous pan pizza that's going to blow any takeaway pizza you order out the water. I'm going to use a pre-ferment and some sourdough discard. That's going to boost the flavour to another level and keep our sourdough wastage to a minimum. Right, so I like to mix my pre-ferments up 12 to 18 hours before I'm going to bake. In my case, it's normally the night before. And in my jar, I've got 66 grams of strong white bread flour, 66 grams of water, and 0.6 grams of instant dried yeast. It's had a quick mix with a spoon. I'm going to pop a lid on it, and then it's going to sit out at room temperature to ferment. So this dough is made with 100% strong white bread flour. This one's got a protein content of 13%. The dough is 75% hydrated, and I've bumped the salt content up just a touch to 2.2%. I'm using 30% pre-ferment and 30% sourdough discard. The recipe uses just 0.5% of active dried yeast and 5% of extra virgin olive oil. Now this recipe makes one giant pizza and it fits into a tray that's 40 centimetres by 30 centimetres, but fear not, on the blog I'm going to give you two more recipes, one that fits a standard tray and the other one that fits a cast iron pan. So here we are the morning after mixing the pre-ferment, and into my bowl goes 180 grams of water followed by 9 grams of sea salt. I'm going to give this mixture a really good stir with a spoon until that salt's dissolved. Now we can add 1.4 grams of instant dried yeast and 20 grams of olive oil. Now here's that pre-ferment we made last night, and as you can see it's really nice and bubbly. I'm going to add 120 grams of this to the bowl. Now I'm adding 120 grams of our sourdough discard, and finally I'm going to add 280 grams of strong white bread flour. Now we can bring this mixture together with a spoon. Now because the pre-ferment and the discard are already hydrated, at this point this is quite a wet dough. Finally, using a wet hand, I'm going to pinch that dough for about a minute or so. And then once the dough looks like this, a rough kind of dough, I'm going to cover it, leave it at room temperature for 30 minutes for that flour to hydrate. Now you're going to find the recipe blog linked down in the video description, and that's going to have all of the information you could possibly need. Right, so now the flour's had a chance to hydrate, I'm going to give this dough a quick knead. Not for long, just for about 2 minutes or so. That's going to be perfect. Now the main objective here is to make sure the dough is well mixed. I'm not worried about developing a smooth dough or building strength. Now the dough can be balled up, it's going to go back into its bowl, it's going to get covered, and it's going to sit back at room temperature to ferment. Right, so it's been an hour and a half since I kneaded the dough, and it's increased in volume by about 75% or so. And I'm going to give this a quick stretch or lamination, and that's going to condition the dough, but it's also going to degas it, which means we can leave it once again to ferment without the risk of it collapsing. Then once we've done that, we're going to bring it back into a ball. It's going to sit covered again in its bowl at room temperature. So when our dough has increased in volume by between 75% and 100%, we can shape this dough. Now into my tray I'm going to put some olive oil. Now it's not to stop the dough from sticking, but it's to help with colour and flavour. And now all we need to do is to spread this dough out towards the edges of the tray, but don't yank the edges and forget about the centre. Get your fingers underneath and move the mass of dough out towards the edge. And you can use your fingers and your hand just to encourage that dough to spread out. Now there's a good chance that dough will start to recoil back on itself. Don't fight it, just cover it and leave it for 5 to 10 minutes. When you come back, the dough should be more relaxed and easier to spread out. And you can repeat that resting process a couple of times if needed. Whatever makes the process easier for you. Now it can just be covered and left at room temperature for its final proof. Right, so after an hour the pizza dough is well risen, and I've got to tell you, it smells amazing. Now you can use whatever toppings you want, but know this base is light and airy, but it's also a solid foundation, so don't be scared to load this pizza. Now I bought this simple sauce together quickly. It's really good quality store-bought pre-grated tomatoes, and I've simply seasoned them with thyme, oregano, salt and black pepper. That is it. I've got 200 grams of diced pineapple here. Half's going to go on now, and I'm going to save the other half for later. Now the dough gets covered with 500 grams of mozzarella, and for this pizza I build that cheese up around the sides first. This is what's going to give a really crispy, lacy texture to the edges. Now on goes the rest of the pineapple, and lastly I'm going to lay on 160 grams of sliced spicy salami. Now this definitely isn't anything I'd put on my cold meat selection, but it is the closest thing that I can find here to pepperoni. And that's it. Into the oven it goes. Right, so for this bake, I want the pizza base to cook a bit quicker than the top. So I've got my baking steel set on the lower third shelf. The oven is set to conventional bake mode, that's no fan. Everything's preheated to 250 degrees Celsius, that's 480 degrees Fahrenheit. 5 minutes before the pizza goes in, I reduce the temperature to 220 degrees Celsius, 430 degrees Fahrenheit. The pizza tray slides in and bakes on the steel for 20 minutes. Now, if you don't have a steel, don't stress, you can still bake this. Slide the tray in directly on the oven shelf and just extend the bake by 5 to 10 minutes. When you bring it out, lift up the corner of the pizza while it's still in the tray, just to check it's cooked on the base. Look at that bubbly goodness. This is my favourite takeaway style pizza. Now, resist the urge to dive straight in and give yourself third-degree burns. Gently slide this out onto wire rack and leave it to cool down for about 5 minutes. Oh wow, the base has got some real flavour from the sourdough discard and the pre-ferment. It's kind of right up there with the toppings. It doesn't pale into insignificance. And of course, the star of this pizza, that lacy, cheesy edge around the outside. It's a flavour bomb. You've got different textures for a start. You've got the crispy base, the soft cheese, but you've got this really crispy, lacy edge of that caramelised cheese, and it's got a real umami kick. This is a monstrous takeaway style pizza. There's nothing polite about it. It's like right up in your face, full of attitude. If you've got sourdough discard kicking around at home, give this a whirl. You won't be disappointed. And let me know what you think to that amazing lacy edge. So if you've got lots of sourdough discard and you want something to do with it, then this is the recipe for you. You're not going to be disappointed. Make this your own. Now, all of the recipe details are on the blog. That's linked in the video description with the sourdough recipe calculator. A huge thank you for watching. I'll see you again very soon. Stay tuned.